It took only a year, but it seems MusclePharm has again become a victim of product line extension creep. So I'll help decode that introductory statement a bit later in this content, but on November 14th of 2024, FitLife Brands updated the public markets by releasing its 2024 third quarter earnings report. So I'll be utilizing the information from those financial documents along with notes I took while listening to the earnings conference call, and finally any relevant publicly disclosed information to obviously update you on the recent performance of the FitLife Brands portfolio, but also utilize everything to provide further context for my expanded strategic commentary on trends that are happening within the nutritional supplement space. For those new to these quarterly content pieces on FitLife Brands, the supplement brands that are within the portfolio are categorized into three segments: legacy FitLife brands, which is broken up into two subsegments: NDS products, which are a collection of brands mostly sold in the GNC franchise system, and then isotory products, which are a collection of brands sold through a diversified retail mix, and then Mimi's Rock Corporation products, which are a collection of brands mostly sold on Amazon, and then MusclePharm. In total, the FitLife brands portfolio is sold through, I think, more than 20,000 retail locations globally. But let's dive into some financial data. In the third quarter of 2024, FitLife brands had revenue of $16 million, which was up 15% year over year, but down around 5% on a quarter over quarter sequential basis. But though that year over year growth rate obviously looks strong, it's important to remember that those reported results were greatly impacted by the MusclePharm acquisition that closed in October of 2023. But let's now talk about the sales channel mix of FitLife brands, as that has been a major focus of the company's leadership over the last 5 years. Historically speaking, aka the legacy FitLife brand side, these supplement brands generated most of their revenue from the specialty retailer GNC. And by most, I mean like around 80% at one point. But that key customer risk felt consistently more problematic because of the seemingly episodic business troubles that GNC has experienced over the last decade. Yet, consider that in the third quarter of 2024, GNC made up an estimated 58% of legacy FitLife brands revenue and only 23% of the entire portfolio revenue. The diversification of the legacy FitLife brand segment has come from additional focus being placed on e-commerce. Additionally, consider that the legacy FitLife brands, we don't want to step on GNC franchise's playbook mentality that avoids channel conflict by pricing products higher on Amazon, and that segment revenue diversification effort should feel a bit more impressive. Moreover, after acquiring the Amazon focused Mimi's Rock segment, FitLife brands would now actually be considered a digital first supplement brand portfolio, with e commerce accounting for about 68% of this quarter's total revenue. And just to kind of close the loop on this sales channel detail for FitLife brands, online revenue was $10.8 million, an increase of 14% year over year, and wholesale revenue was $5.2 million, an increase of 16% year over year. But again, basically the entirety of that growth in both sales channels came from the non-comparable timing aspect of the MusclePharm acquisition. But let's next shift into some additional segment data detail for Mimi's Rock and MusclePharm, which might help provide further context into the FitLife brand's growth story. In the third quarter, Mimi's Rock revenue was slightly more than $7.2 million, which was essentially flat year over year. If we look at the Mimi's Rock performance a layer deeper, the Dr. Tobias brand, which represents about 90% of the total segment, increased revenue 6% year over year. But that positive revenue growth was completely offset by a sharp revenue decline coming from the skincare brands. It was noted that after the acquisition last year, FitLife brands had determined that much of the skincare brands business outside of the US and Canada was unprofitable at levels even from a gross margin perspective, and thus required elimination by exiting several countries completely and raising prices in a few others. As a result, Mimi's Rock segment increased its contribution margin 690 basis points year over year, which is impressive when you again consider its flat revenue performance. And then MusclePharm revenue in the third quarter was about $2.5 million. And if you were wondering how that looks on a year over year comparative basis, Let's just say that the Eric Hillman run bankrupt version outsold this current FitLife Brands version. But that's probably an apples to oranges comparison because Eric Hillman was focused on survival by any means necessary, and FitLife Brands is attempting to make strategic business decisions that support and optimize long term growth. That being said, MusclePharm's revenue did decrease 8% on a quarter over quarter sequential basis, mostly due to some significant wholesale orders slipping into the next quarter, which reportedly caused monthly revenue for MusclePharm in October to be at the highest level since the acquisition. The other aspect involves normal seasonality of the sports nutrition market that has historically dampened sales in the second half of the year. Alternatively, in terms of more consistent comparable sales channel performance, quarter over quarter revenue of online only decreased 4%, which makes sense when you consider that FitLife Brands can control more of its own destiny in terms of pacing commercial strategy within an online marketplace like Amazon. But while the sales channel mix of MusclePharm is currently 50-50 wholesale and online, it's very likely the brand's biggest long term opportunities will again come from the offline retail channel. Since the acquisition, FitLife Brands has been reestablishing relationships with MusclePharm's existing and previous wholesale customers, but that takes patience and the ideal product mix to fit wholesale channel partners. Moreover, FitLife Brands has been making progress with new wholesale partners, noting that it secured placement for MusclePharm's Combat Sport protein bars in several regional grocery and convenience chains. But now let's shift towards what I was mentioning in that introductory statement, because FitLife Brands also announced that it would be launching a new advanced premium product line extension called MusclePharm Pro Series. The product lineup is said to currently consist of 9 SKUs and will be sold exclusively at the Vitamin Shop starting in the first quarter of next year. The specialty retailer will initially stock MusclePharm Pro Series within around 400 of its high volume stores. But if that 2-month pilot is successful, it will be added to the assortment of all 700 plus the Vitamin Shop store locations for an exclusive period of 12 months. And here we go again. This has been a central theme within the MusclePharm story for much of the last decade, and what ultimately killed the sports nutrition brand. MusclePharm has chased off brand trend after off brand trend through line extensions, totally wrecking any semblance of what the brand stands for and basically losing all emotional connection with consumers. Instead of supporting the brand or customer long term, MusclePharm focused on pandering to retailer requests for this or that exclusive line extension because the thought was helping that retailer fill a merchandising gap would not only allow MusclePharm to chase sell-in wholesale revenue, but also provide them a likely elongated shelf placement, even if sell-through was initially poor, because that retailer would feel some culpability from asking for that exact new line or brand extension. And while line extension creep at MusclePharm obviously started well before the acquisition, it's surprising that FitLife Brands didn't highlight that underlying driver of failure and learn from those past experiences. But all this shows me is that FitLife Brands still has no vision around MusclePharm and is comfortable with it continuing to be a servant to the wrong master. And just to be completely clear here, I'm not surprised that after a year, FitLife Brands still lacks strategic vision around the MusclePharm turnaround efforts. In fact, I mentioned that FitLife Brands needed stronger visionary voices throughout the organization within content that dates back several years before the MusclePharm deal. Instead, what surprised me is that FitLife Brands, which by the way, I've always respected as strong operators, would not be strategically conservative for at least the next 12 to 18 months to rebuild the foundation for future growth opportunities at MusclePharm. FitLife Brands should be doing the hard work in rebuilding connection and trust with customers, reconstructing the brand story, rebuilding community, and bringing it all to life with layers of content. That is absolutely not happening right now. In a press release, FitLife Brands mentioned that it's making targeted investments in advertising and promotion for the MusclePharm brand in both the wholesale and online channels. But if you've kind of glanced at their digital platform presence lately, you'd quickly realize that those investments are transactional or performance marketing related because FitLife Brands hasn't created one brand marketing piece in a whole year, which is absurd. And I'm sorry if this hurts a team member's feelings over at FitLife Brands, but the MusclePharm social media looks like my 9-month-old son is running it by button smashing on Canva to create a bunch of uninspired images because he feels like he must or he'll get fired. I was quite confident that FitLife Brands understood it's a marathon and not a sprint with MusclePharm. Moreover, the last 5 or 7 years of MusclePharm brand mismanagement had provided a sizable amount of unlocked value that was just waiting to come out. And doing the required hard work up front to rebuild the foundation of MusclePharm for the long haul would inherently unlock enough short term financial results to appease shareholders around the acquisition ROI. Yet, FitLife Brands thinks it would be better served in reaching its arbitrary segment financial goal of doubling the run rate over the next 12 months by becoming a victim of product line extension creep. There is no argument that MusclePharm is currently the most significant organic growth opportunity within FitLife Brands. I think anyone with one good eye can see that. But I still get this feeling that people inside that organization have different definitions around the most significant organic growth opportunity. Admittedly, reaching that $20 million run rate, which equals double the current run rate, is almost a kindergarten level goal. You don't need much strategic vision to achieve that result. But getting Muscle Farm to that financial level won't make anyone notice or care about FitLife Brands outside of maybe industry strategy nerds like me or some retail investors that like to gamble. So then realizing that, are some of the FitLife Brands leadership members maybe the most ambitious ones that hate being overlooked, thinking that there's a chance of getting to the heyday of Muscle Farm, both from an influence, impact, and revenue perspective? I sure hope not, especially proving through the actions that it doesn't truly have a handle on the variables driving today's performance nutrition categorical market, anyways, even beyond this recent reversion to bad business decisions of Muscle Farm past. And that's because getting overly aggressive trying to restore Muscle Farm back to a level it will never reach again will undoubtedly expose its weaknesses more prominently and create unnecessary burden across the entire FitLife Brands organization. And I know that ending probably sounded quite ominous, but my hope is that it strategically recenters FitLife Brands towards searching for easy growth through bolt-on M&A in the next 12 to 18 months, not by sprinting the Muscle Farm turnaround plan. But I hope you enjoyed the first principles thinking that went into my latest YouTube video. If you did, can you do me a favor by hitting that like button? That quick and free action helps YouTube know my content is worth spreading to more people. Also, we're getting really close to reaching my next subscriber goal, and it would be great if you join me on this journey. But to do that, we need to fix the fact that slightly more than 3/4 of you that are watching this video right now are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, and that hurts my feelings. Regardless, I want to thank you for giving me some of your attention and time, and I'll see you on the next one.